The sun was bright above the alien city, shining against towers of stone and metal that reached into the sky. Jace Rowan had never seen such a strange place before. He was only supposed to be here for repairs. His ship had broken down near the world of Vales, and he had landed to buy supplies. He did not know the city was preparing for a ceremony. He did not know that by walking into the plaza, he had already been chosen. The crowd cheered when the blue-skinned women stepped forward. They were tall, elegant, and beautiful, with silver hair braided down their backs. Each one wore shining armor that caught the sunlight. They surrounded Jace, smiling in a way that looked both warm and serious. Before he could say a word, they lifted him into a golden chair and carried him high above the ground. The crowd roared as horns blared. Jace laughed nervously, thinking it was some kind of festival. He thought maybe they were mocking him, the strange human who had wandered into their traditions. But the people around him were not laughing. They were bowing. The chair was heavy, carved with old symbols, and the women moved with perfect strength and balance. Jace waved a hand to the crowd, half amused, half confused. All right, I get it," he said softly to himself. "I'm the guest of honor." But deep inside, he felt something was wrong. The air was thick with tension. The way the crowd watched him was not playful. Their eyes were filled with hope, fear, and a kind of desperate belief. It felt less like a parade and more like a ritual. They carried him across the wide plaza, past burning braziers and stone statues that looked like warriors of ages past. Strange alien runes glowed on the ground beneath their feet. Every step the women took made the symbols shine brighter. Jace could feel the chair warming beneath him, as if it were alive. His laughter faded. His hands gripped the sides of the throne. He whispered, "What is this place?" But no one answered. Only the sound of chanting rose from the people, low and steady. Like a song meant for the dead, the women stopped in the center of a great circle of stone. The golden throne locked into place with a sound that made Jace's chest tighten. The runes pulsed once, and then a beam of light shot into the sky. Above, the blue heavens cracked with lines of white fire. Orbital beacons awoke, their signals flashing across the horizon. The air hummed with energy. The crowd dropped to their knees as one. Jace sat frozen, his smile gone, his voice stuck in his throat. He was no longer being celebrated. He was being crowned. An elder stepped forward, robes flowing, his skin glowing faintly with the same blue as the runes. His voice was loud and clear, carrying across the plaza. "The War King has risen once more. The bearer of the throne has accepted the right of stone. The ancient law binds us. The enemies will come. The war begins." The people cried out in unison, raising their arms to the sky. Jace stared at the elder in shock. War King? Right of stone? He had no idea what any of it meant. But he understood one thing: whatever he had done, it could not be undone. The blue-skinned women looked at him with solemn eyes. No longer were they smiling. They bowed their heads as if in respect, but also in sorrow. Jace's heart pounded. He wanted to stand, to step down from the chair, but his body would not move. The throne held him, almost gripping him with invisible force. His voice finally broke free. "Wait!" he shouted. "I didn't agree to this. I'm just a mechanic. I'm not your king." His words echoed in the air, but the people only bowed lower. To them, his protest sounded like a command. To them, the War King had spoken. High above, the fire in the sky grew stronger. Distant lights flickered in orbit, like ships answering the signal. Jace's stomach dropped as the truth pressed down on him. This was not a celebration. This was not a joke. He had been carried into power by a mistake or by a trap. And now, because of some ancient law, he was the spark that would call enemies across the stars. The unexpected war had already begun. The throne released Jace at last, and he stumbled forward onto the cold stone floor. The alien women who had carried him stepped back, lowering their heads with respect. He wanted to shout at them, to demand answers, but the words caught in his throat. The crowd was still kneeling, waiting for his command. The elder raised both hands to the sky and declared, "The War King shall lead us once more. The enemy will rise. The people will stand." The cheers rolled across the plaza like thunder. Jace felt small in that storm of voices, trapped in a role he never asked for. That night, the city was alive with firelight. Drums echoed through the streets, and warriors trained with weapons that glowed faintly with energy. Jace sat in a stone chamber, guarded by the same blue-skinned women. Their armor gleamed in the light of the braziers. He tried speaking to them, but they remained silent, watching him with eyes that carried both duty and pity. Finally, one of them spoke. Her voice was calm, strong, and filled with a kind of sadness. "You should not have touched the throne," she said. "Now it cannot release you." Jace frowned, his chest tightening. "I didn't touch anything. You carried me." She shook her head slowly. "It does not matter. The throne chose you. That is enough." Her words cut through him like a blade. He wanted to argue, to call it all a mistake, but the weight of the city pressing around him made his anger fade. Instead he asked, "What's your name?" The warrior hesitated, then answered softly, "Serenia." It was the first human word she had spoken to him, and something in the way she said it felt real. Jace leaned forward. "Serenia, I don't want this. I'm not your king. I fix ships. I don't lead armies." She looked at him with sharp silver eyes. "The galaxy does not care what you want. The signal has been sent. They are coming." Her voice lowered, almost to a whisper. "And if you do not lead us, we will all die." Jace stared at her, his hands trembling. For the first time, he felt the weight of their hope pressing down on him. The next morning, Serenia and her sisters guided him through the ruins outside the city. They were old battlegrounds, broken stone towers stretching into the sky like the bones of giants. The ground was marked with scars from weapons that burned hotter than fire. Jace felt the silence of the place seep into his bones. Serenia walked beside him, speaking little, but she watched his every move. He tried to distract himself by asking questions. "So who are these enemies? Why do they hate you so much?" Serenia's steps slowed. "They are the Krail Dominion. For 1,000 years they tried to take this world. The throne was built to call the War King whenever they returned." Her eyes met his. "And now you are that king." The ruins seemed colder after her words. Jace touched one of the old stone walls. His fingers brushed against carvings of battles, long-gone warriors holding blades of light, ships raining fire from the sky. He pulled his hand back quickly, feeling a chill spread up his arm. "I can't do this," he muttered. "I don't know how to fight an empire." Serenia stepped closer, her voice steady. "You will learn. The throne chose you for a reason. We do not question it. Neither should you." Her hand rested briefly on his shoulder, warm and firm. "But you will not be alone." Her words struck something deep inside him, a spark of strength hidden under his fear. As they returned to the city, smoke rose on the horizon. A scout ran through the gates, shouting in the alien tongue. Serenia's face hardened. "The Krail have already sent ships. They know the War King has risen. They will strike before you are ready." Panic surged through Jace. He grabbed Serenia's arm. "Then tell them I'm not the king. Tell them it's all a mistake." Serenia's gaze locked onto her voice sharp. "If you say those words aloud, our people will lose hope. And without hope, we are already dead." Jace froze, staring at her. He realized that in their eyes, he wasn't just a man. He was a symbol. And symbols could not be broken. That night, the city's walls shook with the sound of distant thunder. Lights flashed in the sky, the first sign of ships entering the atmosphere. Warriors gathered, their armor glowing with the light of their weapons. Jace stood among them, his heart pounding. He had no blade, no armor, no plan. But Serenia stood. At his side, her eyes bright with fire. She whispered to him, "When the storm comes, stand tall. Even if you feel fear, they must see strength." Jace clenched his fists, staring into the burning horizon. He still did not believe he was there. King. But for the first time, he wondered if he could become something more than a man lost in a foreign world. The first shot lit up the sky, tearing through the clouds with a scream of fire. The war had arrived at his doorstep. And whether he wanted it or not, Jace was already in the middle of it. The night sky burned red as enemy ships descended through the clouds. Their hulls glowed like molten iron, sleek and sharp as blades. Jace stood on the city walls, his heart hammering in his chest. Around him, the alien warriors prepared for battle, their weapons humming with energy. Serenia stood at his side, her silver hair whipping in the wind, her spear glowing with blue fire. The ground shook as the first of the Krail war machines landed outside the city. Massive walkers, armed with cannons, began their march toward the gates. Jace whispered to himself, "I'm not ready for this." But the people were already chanting his name. They did not see his fear. They only saw their king. The gates burst open as the warriors charged forward. Blue-skinned fighters ran with grace and fury, their weapons flashing in the firelight. Jace hesitated, caught between fear and duty. Serenia glanced back at him, her eyes sharp. "Come with me," she said, her voice like steel. Before he could argue, she pulled him into the chaos. The battlefield was a storm of sound shouts, explosions, and the clash of energy weapons. Jace stumbled as beams of light tore past him, scorching the ground. He ducked behind a broken wall, his breath ragged. Serenia fought in front of him, her movements swift and deadly. Each strike of her spear dropped an enemy soldier. She fought not just for survival but for honor. Watching her, Jace felt a strange fire spark in his chest. A Krail soldier leapt from the shadows, aiming its jagged blade at Jace. Time seemed to slow. He had no weapon, no training. His body froze. But instinct took over. He grabbed a broken piece of stone and swung it wildly. The shards smashed against the soldier's mask, sending it crashing to the ground. Jace stared at the fallen enemy, his hands trembling. He had never killed before, but the battlefield gave no time for thought. Serenia's voice cut through the chaos. "Good, now you fight with us." Her words were not praise, they were command. And Jace realized he had no choice but to obey. The battle raged through the ruins beyond the city. Flames lit the night, and smoke choked the air. Jace and Serenia moved together, weaving through rubble and broken towers. The enemy pressed hard, their machines thundering forward. Jace's arms ached from throwing stones and striking with scavenged weapons. He was clumsy, but desperation made him fierce. Serenia stayed close, protecting him when he faltered, guiding his steps when he stumbled. Together, they formed a bond of fragile thread of trust forged in fire. Jace began to see the battlefield not as a place of death, but as a test. If he could survive this, maybe he truly was meant for more. As dawn broke, the Krail forces pulled back. Their machines retreated into the mist, leaving behind broken metal and the bodies of their fallen. The city walls still stood, though scarred and cracked. The warriors cheered, raising their weapons high. They shouted Jace's name, voices echoing across the ruins. He wanted to tell them he did nothing, that Serenia had saved him, that he was no king. But when he looked at their faces filled with belief, he could not. He raised his fist instead, and their cheers grew louder. For the first time, he did not laugh. He felt the heavy truth sink deeper into his bones. There. Hope lived in him now, whether he wanted it or not. That night, the council gathered in the great hall. The elder's voice was calm but heavy. The first wave was only a test. The Krail will return in greater numbers. The War King must prepare. Jace sat in silence, staring at the fire that burned in the center of the chamber. His body was sore, his mind restless. Serenia spoke for him. He fought with us, he bled with us, he will be ready. Jace looked at her in surprise. Her words gave him no choice but to nod. The council bowed their heads, accepting it as truth. Jace felt the weight of chains he could not see. Chains forged from duty and expectation. Later, Serenia led him to the highest tower. From there, the ruins stretched endlessly under the pale moonlight. "Why me?" Jace asked softly. "Why? Would your throne choose a stranger? You must have warriors stronger than me, leaders wiser than me." Serenia's gaze never left the horizon. Strength and wisdom are not always what the throne seeks. Sometimes it chooses the one who does. Not want power. The one who laughs when carried, because he has not yet felt the cost. That man can change everything. Her words sank into him, deeper than any wound. Jace did not believe them fully, but he wanted to. As they stood in silence, a shadow moved across the stars. Ships, larger than any before, slipped into orbit. Their lights burned like red fire against the darkness. Serenia's face hardened. "The hunt begins," she whispered. Jace felt the world tilt beneath him. The Krail were not retreating. They were stalking him, waiting for the moment to strike again. The war had only begun, and he was the prey they hunted. The shadow of the Krail fleet darkened the skies for days. Their ships hovered like silent predators, blocking the sun, casting long shadows over the city. The people lived under constant fear, their chants of hope now turning into whispered prayers. Jace walked the streets, feeling their eyes on him. Children stared with awe, warriors saluted, and elders bowed. But he saw the truth in their faces. They were terrified, clinging to him like a lifeline. He felt like an actor on a stage playing a role he had never rehearsed. Inside, he was still a man who wanted to fix engines, not lead wars. Serenia stayed by his side, guiding him through the city's hidden passages. She showed him the forges where weapons were built, the barracks where soldiers trained, and the temples where priests lit fires in his name. Everywhere he went, the weight of expectation pressed down on him. One evening, as they walked through the ruins near the city walls, Jace whispered, "What if I fail them?" Serenia stopped and looked at him, her eyes sharp. "Then we all fall. That is the truth." She did not soften her words. She wanted him to feel their weight. And he did. The council gathered in secret chambers beneath the city. The elder spoke gravely. "The Krail fleet grows each day. Their armies prepare, but the greater danger is not above us. It is within." Jace frowned. "Within?" The elder nodded. "There are those among us who fear the War King is cursed. They whisper that your arrival is not salvation but doom." Jace felt a chill run down his spine. He had seen the wary looks, the doubts in certain faces. Serenia's voice cut through the silence. "Let them whisper. When he leads us to victory, they will believe." The elder's eyes lingered on Jace. "And if he does not?" The words echoed like a blade drawn in the dark. The next night, Jace discovered what the elder had meant. A group of masked figures ambushed him in the temple grounds. They carried curved blades, their eyes filled with rage. "False king," one hissed. "You bring only ruin." Jace stumbled back, unarmed, his heart racing. Before the blades could strike, Serenia leapt between them. Her spear blazed with light, striking down two in a heartbeat. The others fled into the shadows. Jace's hands shook as he stared at the fallen attackers. Serenia turned to him, her voice low. "This is what it means to be king. Not all will follow. Some will hunt you like the Krail do." Jace swallowed hard. He realized he was not only fighting an empire. He was fighting doubt, betrayal, and fear within his own people. Days turned to weeks. The Krail continued their siege, cutting off supplies, waiting for weakness. The people grew restless, hungry, desperate. Jace watched as soldiers trained harder, their bodies breaking under the strain. He tried to help, working alongside them, carrying stones, repairing weapons, lifting where he could. At first, they laughed at his clumsiness, but soon they grew quiet. They saw his sweat, his blood, his effort. Slowly, respect began to grow. Serenia noticed it too. One evening she told him, "They are beginning to see not just a symbol, but a man. And sometimes a man is stronger than a symbol." Her words lit a small spark of pride in him, though fear still lingered like a shadow. One night, alarms rang across the city. A Krail raiding party had broken through the outer ruins. Jace rushed to the walls with Serenia. He saw the enemy moving like shadows, striking fast and vanishing. Fires burned, and the cries of the wounded filled the air. Jace grabbed a fallen warrior's blade, his hands trembling. Serenia caught his arm. "Stay close to me." They fought side by side through the smoke. Jace's movements were clumsy, but desperation pushed him forward. Each swing of his blade was wild, but some found their mark. He felt the sting of cuts on his arms, the burn of exhaustion in his chest, yet he did not stop. He could not. By dawn, the raiders were driven back, but the city bore new scars. Entire streets lay in ruins, and the wounded filled the halls of the temple. Jace walked among them, his heart heavy. A child grabbed his hand, whispering, "Don't let them take us." Jace knelt, gripping the boy's hand tightly. "I won't," he said, though he had no idea how to keep that promise. As he looked around, he saw the trust in their eyes. It was crushing, but also unshakable. He understood now that even if he failed, he could not run. They had no one else. He was their last chance. That night, Jace stood at the highest tower again, watching the red lights of the Krail fleet flicker above. Serenia joined him, silent for a long time. Finally she said, "You carry more than a throne now, you carry all of us." Jace looked at her, then back at the endless sky. "Then I'll carry it," he whispered. His voice was steady for the first time. He still felt fear, but beneath it burned something stronger. Determination. The galaxy might be against him. His own people might doubt him, but he would not let them break. Not now. Not ever. The dawn sky glowed crimson as the Krail fleet moved. At last, their ships tore through the clouds like burning knives, fire trailing behind them. The ground shook as alarms echoed through the alien city. People rushed into the streets, soldiers armed themselves, and the sound of war drums thundered. Jace stood on the walls with Serenia at his side, staring up at the vast fleet above. His chest was tight, his throat dry. This was not a raid. This was the full storm. Serenia's voice was steady as she whispered, "The battle has come. Do not show fear, they must believe." Jace nodded, though his legs trembled beneath him. The first wave struck without mercy. Blazing beams of red energy rained down from the sky, smashing towers, ripping through streets, and sending stone flying into the air. The city burned as screams filled the air. Warriors ran to their posts, unleashing volleys of blue energy from great cannons mounted on the walls. The beams clashed in the sky like lightning, painting the heavens with fire. Jace ducked as an explosion tore open a nearby wall, throwing dust and rubble around him. Serenia pulled him back to his feet. "Stay alive," she said sharply. "They will follow your strength." Jace wiped blood from his face and forced himself to nod. The gates burst open as the enemy stormed the city. Krail soldiers in dark armor poured through, their weapons blazing. The alien warriors met them in a clash of fire and steel. The streets turned into rivers of battle. every corner echoing with the cries of the dying. Jace stumbled into the chaos, gripping a stolen blade. He fought clumsily, but every strike was driven by desperation. He blocked, swung, and stumbled, but he refused to fall. Serenia moved beside him like a storm, her spear flashing with deadly precision. She cut down enemies faster than Jace could count. Yet she never moved too far, always circling close to protect him. Her loyalty burned brighter than any fire. Above, enemy warships descended lower, unleashing mechanical beasts onto the ground. Great walkers with legs of iron marched through the ruins, their cannons firing without pause. The city's defenses struggled to keep up. Jace felt his heart sink. The enemy was endless, a tide of death crashing against fragile walls. "We can't win this," he gasped. Serenia grabbed his arm, her eyes fierce. "We do not fight to win, we fight to survive. As long as you live, there is hope." Her words struck him harder than any weapon. Hope, that was all they had left, through the chaos. Jace noticed something strange. The throne in the plaza, abandoned since the first ceremony, began to glow again. Its runes pulsed with energy, brighter with every passing moment. The people glanced toward it, even as they fought, their faces filled with awe. Jace felt the pull in his chest, the same force that had held him on the throne before. He staggered toward it, drawn by something beyond his control. Serenia followed, cutting a path through the enemy soldiers. "The throne is calling you," she shouted over the roar of battle. "Answer it." Jace's stomach twisted with fear. What would happen if he sat again? Would it destroy him or save them all? He did not know. But he had no choice. He climbed the throne as the city burned around him. The golden seat flared, with light binding him once more. A surge of power rushed through his body, hotter than fire, sharper than any blade. His vision blurred, and he saw the battlefield from above as if he were looking through the eyes of the world itself. He saw every soldier, every flame, every ship in the sky. His voice rose without his will, booming across the city. "Stand, fight, do not break." The words echoed like thunder, and the warriors below roared with renewed fury. Even Serenia paused, her eyes wide with shock. Jace's voice was not just a man's voice anymore. It was something greater. The runes on the throne spread there, light across the city, weaving into shields that blocked the enemy's fire. Towers that had crumbled began to glow, their ruins rising to form barriers of stone. Warriors found their weapons burning brighter, their strikes hitting harder. The city itself was answering Jace's command. He gripped the throne, gasping for breath, as the power coursed through him. It was too much, too heavy, but he refused to let go. The people were watching. They believed. He could not fail them now. High above, the Krail fleet shifted. There, ships broke formation, moving as if in fear of the power rising from the planet below. One of the great warships descended lower, its cannons glowing brighter than the sun. The air trembled with the force of its energy. Jace's body ached as he raised a trembling hand. Light burst from the throne, shooting into the sky. It struck the warship with a sound like the cracking of the heavens. The massive vessel shuddered, its hull glowing white, before it split apart in a blaze of fire. The people cried out with joy, their hope rising like a second dawn. But Jace felt the cost. His vision darkened, his body weakening as the throne drained him. He forced his eyes open, clinging to consciousness. Serenia's voice pierced the haze, strong and steady. "Hold on, Jace. Do not give in. You are not alone." Her hand gripped his tightly, anchoring him to the world. He breathed hard, his strength fading, but he refused to fall. Above, the fleet still loomed, countless ships preparing to strike again. The battle was far from over. The fire in the sky was only the beginning. The sky was a storm of fire and ash. The Krail fleet still hung above, their endless warships blotting out the heavens. The city burned, though its defenses now glowed with the light of the throne. Jace sat slumped in the golden seat, his body trembling with exhaustion. The power that surged through him had nearly broken him, but the people were still alive. They looked to him with eyes that shone with faith, calling his name. Serenia stood by his side, her armor scorched, her spear cracked, yet her eyes burned brighter than ever. "The throne listens to you," she said firmly. "But there is more you must know." Her words carried weight, as if she had waited until this moment to speak them. The elder approached, robes torn from the chaos of battle. His voice was steady, though his face was pale. "The truth must not be hidden any longer. The throne does not simply choose at random. It does not call a stranger by chance." Jace forced himself upright, gripping the throne's arms. His voice was hoarse. "Then why me? Why a human? I don't belong here." The elder's gaze locked onto him, heavy with sorrow. "Because you are not the first. Long ago, when the war began, it was a human who forged the throne, a human king who led us in the First Age. His bloodline vanished among the stars, until now." Jace's heart pounded. The words struck him harder than any weapon. "You're saying I'm his descendant?" The elder bowed his head. "You are the last of his line, the War King reborn." The air seemed to freeze around him. Jace's mind reeled. He remembered his father, a mechanic like him, and his grandfather before that. Ordinary men, fixing ships, living quiet lives. Had they known? Had this truth been buried across generations? Serenia knelt before him, her voice soft but certain. "This is why the throne chose you. It knows its own blood. It knows its king." Jace wanted to deny it, to reject the weight of it, but the throne pulsed beneath him like a beating heart. Deep down he already knew. The laughter he had once felt when carried on the throne was gone. Now there was only truth, heavy and undeniable, above. The Krail fleet began to move again, their ships circling like vultures ready to strike. Jace rose to his feet, standing tall on the throne, though his body burned with pain. "If I am truly their king," he said, his voice echoing across the plaza, "then I will not let them fall. Not today, not ever." His words rolled like thunder, carrying through the smoke and fire. The people rose to their feet, their fear melting into fury. Serenia raised her broken spear high, shouting his name. The city answered in unison, their voices rising like a wave. For the first time, Jace felt not just their belief but his own. He was their king. He always had been. The Krail descended in full force, their warships unleashing storms of fire. Jace lifted his hands, and the thrones. Light spread across the battlefield. Shields of stone and energy rose to block the blasts. Warriors charged, their weapons glowing brighter than before. Serenia fought at the front, leading with unshakable courage. Jace could feel every heartbeat, every cry, every strike. The throne tied him to them all, binding the people and their king as one. He was not just commanding them, he was fighting with them. Their strength became his, and his became theirs. The largest of the Krail ships descended, a monstrous flagship bristling with cannons. Its shadow swallowed the city. The elder cried out, "That is their heart. Destroy it, and they will scatter." Jace focused all his will, his veins burning with fire. The throne's runes blazed, brighter than the sun. He raised his hand, and the city itself answered. Towers twisted into spears of stone, hurling into the sky. Rivers of light surged upward, tearing into the flagship's hull. The ship shook, explosions bursting across its surface. Jace roared with fury and pain, pouring every drop of his soul into the strike. With a final scream, the flagship split apart in a storm of fire, raining burning metal into the clouds. The fleet broke. The smaller ships scattered, fleeing into the stars. The sky cleared, the smoke lifting to reveal dawn's light breaking through. The people fell to their knees, their cheers rising louder than the thunder. Serenia climbed the throne steps, her face shining with pride. She took Jace's hand, steadying him as he swayed from exhaustion. "It is done," she said softly. "The War King has returned." Jace looked into her eyes, his breath ragged, his body trembling. "No," he whispered. "The people won, not me. Without them, I am nothing." Serenia's lips curved into the faintest smile. "That is why you are king." Her words were the truth he had needed to hear. The elder raised his arms to the crowd. "The throne has chosen. The War King has led us to victory. His line has returned. The Krail will remember this day. The galaxy will remember this day." The cheers rose again, shaking the ruins of the city. Jace sat back in the throne, no longer laughing, no longer afraid. He had come here by chance, a stranger carried by alien women as if it were a joke. But now he understood. It had never been a joke. It had always been destiny. The truth had changed everything.